What's up, guys? This is Anthony here, and I'm back again with another video for you. And today I'm going to be talking to the project managers, the aspiring project managers, the senior project managers, the APMs, whoever whatever capacity you find yourself in. And I'm going to be discussing how to use AI to initiate and plan any projects, right? Either it's complex or it's not complex. I'm going to deal with a complex project because I want us to sort of spend time to think about quite a lot of things. Um, Using AI, right? How to use AI to do this, right? And I've chosen an IT project. By the way, this process that I'm going to be sort of demonstrating here, is can be utilized for any project. It doesn't have to be an IT project. It can be a I don't know, oil and gas project. It can be a car project. It can be any project. It doesn't really matter the industry or the sector, manufacturing, and the list goes on. But I've chosen an Azure secure healthcare data platform migration project, as you can see here. By the way, I'm a chartered project manager. I've done project management over the years, and product development as well. And so I'm sort of bringing in a whole lot of experience, you know, you know, to interrogate the AI to provide a lot of conversations. And so I would want to say that, yes, the AI is a useful tool, but a lot of the conversations and sort of the thinking will be informed to some degree by my experience. But I'm going to act as though I'm, new to project management to some extent. And hopefully I can sort of help you, go through the whole project using AI. Okay, so what is, let's get some context here. What's the scope, or what's the sort of the vision of this particular project? Azure Secure Healthcare Data Platform Migration. What's the goal? The goal is to successfully migrate the organization's healthcare data infrastructure to Microsoft Azure, whilst ensuring HIPAA. HIPAA is HIPAA compliance. Again, I'm not going to talk about what HIPAA is. We'll look at it together. And then enhancing security posture, maintaining operational continuity, and enabling advanced analytics capabilities. The project duration is 52 weeks. That's 12 months. The budget is 4.8 million. Um, Again, if I was given this project and I was sort of new to it, I want to understand what Microsoft Azure is. I want to understand what HIPAA compliance is about. What do we mean by security posture? Why is it relevant to this particular project? Operational continuity. Why is this so critical for a healthcare institution to have that? And also, advanced analytics capabilities, right? So that's sort of where I would sort of start to get a good idea of the keywords here, right? And I probably wouldn't have much to say as far as the duration here because I want to assume that 52 weeks, 12 months is a fair bit of time to deliver a project of this nature. The budget, it's too early days to understand whether or not this is going to work. Maybe when we have our work breakdown structure, we can use it to sort of produce our cost breakdown structure and then be able to know whether or not this potential budget will work. So that's sort of the first place, right? There's that element of understanding what it is that's been given to you first before you even use artificial intelligence. Do you understand the words? If you don't, then research about them and have clarity of them, or ask around. Um, Let me also say something very important here, that the sort of the solutions and the prompts that we're going to use and sort of the findings that we're going to get from the AI chat boxes, as it were, will have to be qualified, as far as your context and the organization and the scenarios. And so by no means should you take everything that we get from querying the chat boxes as the finality of what we're going to do. There's a bit of stakeholder engagement, asking your manager, discussing things with your team, your stakeholders, et cetera, to be really in order for you to be able to know whether or not what you have received from the AI is actually going to work within your context. If AI has identified specific resources or specific individuals to do certain things, but at the end of the day, that's not what you have in your context, then quite honestly, you need to refine it with much more specificity, as it were, so that the AI can help you. All right. So that's very important. Remember that as a point. Now, we ultimately have to determine our strategy. And typically, if we're going to do a project of this nature, you'll have a project life cycle or you have a project methodology. I'm assuming that we are choosing a sort of a linear or waterfall approach where everything is sort of consequential. In other words, we can only move to stage two, right? When we have completed stage one. And then we can only move to stage three when we've completed stage one, and then subsequently stage two, et cetera, et cetera. This is a linear waterfall approach. If we were using another methodology, we'll have to sort of plan ourselves a little bit differently. The initiation approach will be somewhat different. But this is the sort of methodology that we've chosen, as it were, to be able to do our work. And so the focus of our of this video and of this sort of work here is to look at how to initiate and then to plan, right? The execution and control is where now you've got your plans and you need to ensure that people are delivering against the plans, right? And so that's where you're going to sort of start engaging the relevant parties to be on time, to do this, to do that. And you probably have some, standard briefs or standard meetings on a day-to-day basis to ensure that everybody's on track. And you probably have some, demo sessions to sort of get some progress reporting exercise going on. You're controlling, you're checking, you're having oversight. And then finally, when it's done, you can close the project. We are not going to tackle anything on 3, 4, and 5. We're just going to be looking at how to initiate the project, how to start it, right? And how to also plan the project. And remember, we said this is a waterfall approach. Okay, I've got a few sort of things here. If you're looking at initiation, typically before initiation, you want to understand what is the project, why the project, any sort of internal support benefits, are they known? Why are we doing this project based on the business case, the roles, who's doing what are the objectives? Do we have any differing objectives? And then you have things like clear and then after initiation, you want to look at the aims. Is it very clear, right? We want to be able to recognize the benefits in its clarity, full internal support, and then secure approval processes, any governance processes that we need to follow and ensure that we've got the approval to move on to the different stages. Is the budget authorized? And then who's the PM that are on board? We want to assume now that you're the project manager and you're going to sort of lead this project. Now, let me do something very important because I want to make sure that, everything is fine. Okay, you got it. Right. So typically, this is what initiation is about. In initiation, we're really just trying to be sure about the vision, the strategy, and we also want to know what the team is. We want to understand sort of the project objectives. We really want to have an idea of what are we doing, why are we doing it, and who's going to help to do it, right? Now, the planning stage is now we're looking really to create a plan, right, for how the project to be executed. And so prior to planning, we're going to, what we want to do, sorry, not prior, but the planning exercise will take into consideration things like change management plans. We're identifying the key risks, the things that are likely to sort of inhibit our capabilities or undermine our ability to deliver this project. What resources do we have? Who's doing what? Again, sort of expanding on it and looking at, how much time and resources and capabilities and whether or not we have the internal training, the internal people to do it, or we have to look outside. And then, of course, we need to get the approvals, of course, before we can sort of execute on anything. And then we can start our kickoff meetings. Typically, the sort of the tools and I'll say the tools, the templates, and sort of the outputs, the deliverables would be a Gantt chart, work breakdown structure, project charter, RACI, which is more of a responsibility, accountability, et cetera, charts, budget, dependency charts, network diagram, risk logs, et cetera. And then sort of the key documents here that we're going to be working with. Hopefully by the end of it, we should be able to sort of have a business case, a project brief, an initiation document, project initiation and project requirement document, work breakdown structure, project schedule, which is really the Gantt chart, and the risk and security plan, communication and security plan. I think I've sort of it's not supposed to be risk and security. It's supposed to be risk and stakeholders. But yeah, let's continue for now. Now, let me say this, right? I'm not looking at the tools that you're going to be using. I'm just going to work with, ChatGPT. I'm not going to be directly sort of, build anything or show you the implementation of these things. I'm just going to be interrogating this, as it were, so that we can use ChatGPTs and the likes to do our work. So if I was given this project, where will I start? Well, I'm using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and then I also have my Microsoft Azure. This is a database migration from on-prem to the cloud. And the cloud that we are using is Azure, right? So if you have zero knowledge of Azure, I would advocate that you go here, right? The portal.azure.com, right? And then create an account. And hopefully you can watch enough videos on YouTube to be able to sort of get an idea as a project manager of what these kinds of projects are all about. You wouldn't be responsible for doing this as a project manager. You wouldn't come here and start creating maybe virtual machines or databases or servers or whatever it is. You have zero, input in terms of the actual, work on the cloud here. You'd be working with cloud engineers, you'd be working with subject matter experts, engineers who are very, very proficient and understand what this is about. But I thought, let me just have it open because we're going to be working. The project is about migration into the cloud, particularly Azure, Microsoft Azure. A lot of the things that you're going to see, you probably will see some of these things. A lot of these services, as it were, that Microsoft offers will be involved or will be utilized for the project that we're talking about here. So where do we start? All right, cool. So I've been told to do this project, and this is the goal. The first things I'll do is I want to understand this. So, I'm going to go back to AI. Let's just get it here. And I'll say, as my expert PM, I want you to help me understand this project that I have been given to do. All right. Let me just qualify with 20 years of experience, expert IT, 20 years of experience. I want you to help me understand this. Right. I want to understand it. So first thing is, I just want to get clarity of what I've been asked to do. Okay. So let's just see what comes up. I would typically copy this and I'll go to Claude and I'll do exactly the same thing, right? And I'll probably do that on Gemini as well. Let's see. By the way, I'm using the paid version for ChatGPT and Claude. Gemini is not paid. I haven't renewed the account, but just so that you understand, when I'm doing all of this stuff, I use everything. I also have DeepSeek. I have other ones, but I just wanted to limit to these three for now because they're popularly known and utilized. Okay, so let's just go back and see what it is that we've got here. All right, go. Migrate the organizational healthcare data infrastructure to Microsoft Azure whilst ensuring HIPAA compliance, right? So these are the key points, HIPAA, all right? What diagram? Okay, so they're sort of giving us a diagram here. As a project manager, let's sort of look at the diagram. What the diagram shows from the image, it looks like a high-level architecture diagram or show healthcare data platform. Let's interpret data source, right? These are your inputs, right? The goal is to centralize and secure the data in Azure, right? Ingest layer. And this is conversations around data migration. So you have the ingest layer, there's data source, pipeline, storage layer, all these sort of conversations. So this is not stuff that you and then analytics, security layer, etc., etc. We'll talk about this in detail, but already we can sort of see there's some technical conversations that the database engineers or the Azure configuration managers or cloud engineers, whatever, or subject matter experts will be needed to have a conversation around this, because you're talking about high level architecture diagram of your Azure based you need to understand Azure. There are different services that there's different, categories and services and, resources that you can utilize to build your entire architecture. And so, it's important for you to just get a good idea. All right. You wouldn't be the person to, again, go back here and start looking at sort of the data pipelines and the storage layers, et cetera, yourself. But it's good to have a good idea. All right. So let's look at this. It says, as a project manager, here's your mission. Understand the current infrastructure, right? Inventory, okay. Define migration strategy, work with security and compliance from a project team. Form a project team. You've got your cloud engineers, Azure experts, security experts, right? Data engineers. You've got compliance officers, business stakeholders. Create a phased migration project. Prioritize critical systems first. Perform data mapping, validation. Would you like help to create a Gantt chart, et cetera, et cetera? That's some good points here that I've gotten. So at least I kind of get an idea of what it is, right? So we'll come back to it. Let's look at what Claude is saying. Claude says here, project overview. This is a multifaceted migration project with several critical objectives. Okay, migration to Azure is one of it. HIPAA compliance. Now, ensuring all, HIPAA is sort of the healthcare. In fact, I don't want to say anything. I just want to sort of learn with you, right? So if you didn't know what HIPAA was, is what? Right? Let's just look at what HIPAA is. Okay, HIPAA compliance entails the context of your healthcare data infrastructure. HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability Act, is actually a law of 1996. It's a United States law that sets the natural standards to protect privacy and security of individuals' protected health information. Right. So people go to hospitals, their health information has to be kept on databases, and so HIPAA, as a law, sets the standard for the protection of the privacy and the security of this individual data, right? So it will stipulate how it's done, how the data is collected, received, utilized, maintained, and transmitted, et cetera, right? So that's something. If you didn't have any idea about it, that's something that you would sort of come back. Enhanced security. Again, the cybersecurity professionals are people that you would have to deal with. In fact, if you remember, one of the key personnel here is your security architects, right? So we've got a good idea, not necessarily a good idea, but we've got a general idea of what this is. The next thing, let me just see, we didn't finish this, right? We've got enhanced security, operational continuity. That's something that they've mentioned here. Maintaining business operations during and after the migration. And this is so important, right? You can't close the hospital just for you to be able to do your migration exercise. And so as a project manager, business continuity is a conversation that you're going to be having the whole time, and it has to be phased out in a very, very delicate way, such that people can go off in the night or whatever and come back in the morning and everything is fine. And to be fair, then this is a healthcare facility, so you couldn't really switch anything off. People can't go off and come back. You've got to ensure that you have systems that are running simultaneously to allow for operations to continue whilst you are migrating to the cloud. So maybe again, I don't want to go ahead of myself. I just want us to sort of come together and understand what these conversations are. So advanced analytics, right? Enabling new data analysis capabilities, right? They want to be able to analyze data, all this data, so that they can be able to use it for insights. Key considerations, HIPAA compliance in Azure, right? So all the configuration in Azure, how the data is collected, how the data is sort of created, stored, all that stuff. We have to ensure that it is in alignment, right, with the policies that are naturally drawn out of the legislating standards, or as it were, that have been that the law seeks to sort of pass across. So Azure offers HIPAA eligible services with business associate agreements. You need PHI data classification, encryption at rest. This is more for data and cybersecurity, right? And then also data in transit, right? And access controls. Comprehensive audit logging and monitoring will be essential. Security architecture, again, it has to be secure, because you're talking about PHI data, health data, personal health data or information. So we've got to make sure that this is secure. And let me say this, this is not, you're not just putting security because if you don't do it, you lose people's data. The law expects you to do it. So there has to be a robust security infrastructure in place or architecture to ensure that this is done correctly. So implement Azure Security Center for threat protection, use Azure Key Vault, right? You're seeing Key Vault here. If we go back here, you probably will see Key Vault, right? Key Vault is here, right? For key, the whole for keys, right? Deploy multi-factor authentication, MFA, role-based reback, role-based access control, established networks. There probably are different other kinds of security architecture, and your cybersecurity professionals and security experts would have a conversation with yourself. Migration approach, how you're going to do it. And this is here looking at the data migration exercise, what it would take, the different pipelines and the different sort of processes that you will follow, and the services that you use in the cloud, as it were. Operational continuity. Yep, you can see develop detailed roadmap plans for each migration phase, establish robust monitoring during migration windows, schedule migration during minimal impact periods, and implement Azure site recovery for disaster recovery. Okay, so even if you didn't have an idea of this thing, right? The point is, in your just that simple task of trying to understand what it is that you need to do, you would ultimately have a good idea or begin to have clarity of the project, as it were. So the first thing is to have clarity, and by interrogating the objective, as it were, or by interrogating the goal, you are able to have some better understanding of what you've been done. Each of them offered some type of solution here, right? Conduct a comprehensive inventory of current assets and classification, perform a gap analysis, develop detailed migration roadmap, establish a security and compliance framework early, and then create testing strategy to validate both functional requirements and compliance needs. All of these are very critical points. Gemini also offered some things. Let's just quickly run through them and see if there's anything else that comes all right. Okay. Core objectives, key consideration, data, same, migration, critical requirement, HIPAA. Each of them keeps mentioning the legislative requirement for you to abide by. So a lot of the things that you need to consider in your work. One of the things about security and also sort of the complexity of this project lies in the fact that you have security built onto it. There's legislative requirements, and then it's sort of a time-bound exercise. So you can't just do what you want in the cloud. It has to be according to the policies or according to the standards established by the law or the HIPAA law, as it were. Essential goals, enhancing security posture. So we have some, repetitive things. Security is one of the key things. The law, compliance is another one, and then migration, the data consideration, business continuity, operational continuity, as it were, enabling advanced analytics. Everybody keeps saying the same thing, right? So as a project manager, you can already know some of the key things. Now, if I wanted to be a little bit whatever, which I don't want to, I would probably ask, let me just do it for the sake of our conversation. I'll say, thank you, but I want you to, add any other relevant yet critical detail you fail to add. And let's see if there's anything else that will come up. And I'll probably do that on all different chat boxes, as it were. Absolutely. Let me make sure that anything is bulletproof from experience, because I already told him that it's an experienced IT PM perspective. Data classification and sensitivity tagging, right? This is just looking at the data. Okay. Identity and access management, business continuity and disaster recovery. Okay. Data governance and lineage, interoperability standards, DevSecOps integration, training and change management, vendor and contract management, audit readiness. Excellent stuff. Final thoughts. This isn't just a migration, a strategic transformation. You are setting up an infrastructure that enhances care delivery, right? Beginning to have conversation about benefits, right? What exactly are we gaining out of this exercise? Supports predictive healthcare, prepares the organization for AI-driven insights, keeps patients trust through compliance and security. So quite a lot of benefits here, right? you're enhancing the care, the delivery of the care, you're supporting predictive healthcare, you're also preparing the organization for data analysis, data insights, and sort of looking at how they can be compliant and secure. So this is a good way for us to start. And again, I'll do that across every area. Now let me just go back to the PowerPoint. All we did was simply to take this so that we can get an idea of what is being asked of us. And already, if you take your pen and your paper, you can begin to sort of identify all the critical areas, all the critical points that you need to be aware of. And if you need further clarity, you also start sort of researching about them in much more detail so that you can be, in a much better position. Now, one thing that I tend to do is, let's go back here, is now I would say I need you to design a high, I need you to provide me a design that shows this, shows the architecture. I don't, what's a detailed design? What depicts this, the architecture. Okay, so I'm going to use that. Let's just try and see if we can get something. Now let's use this and paste it here and see what we will get out of this. Okay. Let's see what we're getting out of here. And I'll do the same for, because I want to now see what they're asking me to do, right? I want to be able to see it clearly, what they're asking me to do. Now, typically, this is very technical, as you can see, quite a lot of technicalities here. But I don't, they haven't showed me anything. What they're asking me to do with Gemini is to get the code and just go and paste it into maybe an IDE, which I don't have time for. So let's see if we can get anything from here. Excellent, 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 excellent. I've got this. Oh, okay. Let's see what we got from here as well. Okay. All right. Again, some good stuff here. Let's increase this. Great. So this looks good, right? So ideally, this is the data source. I actually didn't think ChatGPT was going to give me this brilliant design because I didn't see any code. But this looks good, right? So you've got the data sources, right? There are different systems that currently sit, on-prem. So you've got the EHR system, and then third-party applications, right? Any sort of APIs, on-premises, on-prem systems, applications, and that would naturally be injected into Azure Data Factory. You've got the event hubs, API management, the storage that would sort of go through some type of processing. So this is more of like a process, right? Process that is established, as it were, for you to sort of understand the different phases and what would happen with this whole migration exercise. Databricks, Synapse Analytics, right? Because that was the conversation, to have some type of analytics going on. Azure Data and Lake Storage, Power BI, and then of course the security element. You got the Azure Security Center, Key Vault, role-based access control, data loss prevention, etc., etc. Now, if you don't understand anything here, don't worry, because you're not the one designing this, right? But I would do something which I'm going to show you in a minute. But I also want to sort of use this sort of to help with it again. Like, Claude provides some sort of detail here. The architecture diagram I've created illustrates a comprehensive HIPAA-compliant healthcare data infrastructure on Azure. The design details on-premises layer, right? So you've got the layer here, EHR systems. If we go back here, you've got the EHR and EMR, Epic's Cerner, etc. You've got PACS, imaging, medical images. And then this is like a database, legacy database that you're currently using in the healthcare. Maybe it's running on SQL, or it's running SQL, Microsoft SQL, sorry, or Oracle. And then file systems, that they have on-prem security. Maybe they've got some firewalls, VPNs, whatever. Right. So this is probably what they currently have in their facility. And the idea is to now migrate it into the cloud, right? To come and build these resources here, right? So that eventually everything is run in the cloud, right? And there are many reasons why this is being done, as you've sort of seen, from a technical perspective, probably scalability, efficiency, the ability to maintain these systems and utilize them. There's quite a lot of technical rationale to do this, but then from a wider perspective, we've sort of seen it improving the delivery, analytics, providing insights, et cetera, et cetera. So the on-prem exercise is here, and then you've got the sort of now the process of sort of moving things from here would go through the migration stage, and then the actual build of the Azure infrastructure. You've got Azure Virtual Networks, SQL databases, bio storage, app services, etc., etc. On bolt on to the sort of Azure core infrastructure will be the security layer, and then you've got the security policies that have to sort of be implemented within the infrastructure, within the systems, and then the analytics layer, as it were. So again, you've got the infrastructure, sort of the backbone, you've got a security layer, you've got a compliance layer, and all of this configuration exercise is happening here in the cloud, right? Some technical cloud engineers, security engineers, cloud security engineers have the responsibility of coming here, configuring, testing, ensuring that things work. They will have the responsibility of doing this. But your job is to have an idea of what this looks like, right? And then be able to sort of deliver it, as it were. So in each, already you should begin to sort of have a good idea of what we're talking about. So on-prem layer, this is what they have. The migration layer, this is what sort of you are looking at from a migration layer, right? And then you've got the actual architecture, then the security layer, compliance, and analytics. And this sort of goes back to the original things that has been discussed from the beginning. So again, this is to provide some type of idea so that you can begin to see. And then when you go back to your relevant parties, and maybe you're talking to the cloud engineers and you're talking to the security engineers, et cetera, you have something that you're working with. I've chosen a very complex project for that reason, for the obvious reason, because I want you to sort of have some real critical thinking here, as it were, about what you are doing. Now, so let's go back to our presentation here. We said initiation, right? We want to initiate. Part of what we're doing is initiation, in all honesty, right? Part of what we're doing is initiation, in all honesty. So we've begun to interrogate this. You probably now will take a lot of the information and go and sort of verify whether or not this is relevant to your context, et cetera, et cetera. And this is all very, very important information that we're sharing here, okay? So what next? What next? Well, the key here is that if you're going to ultimately be able to do this properly, then let's start with some of the things that we need, right? at the initiation phase. We haven't answered some questions. In my mind, I typically follow some sort of procedure. I've got the vision, the strategy, then the analysis and research. I don't want to, I think we probably can do some type of analysis and research. So maybe working with a business analyst would be critical, right? At this point, since you have clarity, so that you can, business analyst, subject matter expert, so that you can put together a PID document, and that can sort of inform, as it were, the initiation work. But initiation is also critical. You can't start the project if you haven't answered things like project aims, the benefits, etc., etc. So let's just do something. Let's try and create a project brief, right? A business case and a project brief, so that we can sort of move from here. All right. So based on the information provided with, and in addition to this information that I might type in something in addition, and based on let's just copy this. I just want to add this part. You go up here. No, let's just, I need to close it, sorry. Base, um, and all the details you have provided, and you draft a comprehensive and detailed project brief and also and a business case. This must be detailed yet concise, as it will be presented to the board of directors. Okay, so I've gotten this. Let's just hit that. Now I've got that. I think this is good. I'll probably save this somewhere. I have already saved it, so I've got it here somewhere. I've got something similar to it. But I just want you to know. So I would save this for my understanding. I would screenshot it, whatever it is that you need to do, you do it. In fact, let me just see. So I'll screenshot this, and I would open a Word file. Okay. Okay. I don't know. I'll stick this here for now. And then let's just do something important here, which is, in fact, I'll copy this. And I will take this here to understand. Okay, so we're doing this live so that you can get a very good idea of how this whole thing works. So please be patient. Okay, so I've got a good idea. I've got some words. I probably will get that later. So let's come back to what we are doing, and let's go here and get some good information up and running. So let's go there. Nope. Okay, I want to get this, and yeah, stick it here. And I'll do that with Gemini. Gemini didn't really provide us with the visual, Gemini typically, and like I said, this is the but it went into detail. Let me actually pick it up. It went into detail as to what different services we're going to be using in the cloud. Right? So this is different information, but it's very, very necessary. Compute application, analytics reporting, and these are all sort of different services that we'll be using in the cloud. So textual encryption everywhere, NGS, PHI. So this is actually very useful information for the technical people, right? Maybe not for you as a project manager, but even though, again, see, this is the point. The reason why I use all of these different, AI chat boxes is to have different perspective because they're all going to look at it from different angles. So this is all data that I would eventually sort of look at and save somewhere. But for our purpose, we're working on specific documents, so we'll come back to it. Okay, so we've got a project brief here, the executive summary, the goals, scope of work, excellent, excellent key deliverables, the budget, governance and reporting, success metrics, and then the data infrastructure, business case. Sorry, what's the first one that we just did? This is the project brief. Yes, we asked for project brief and okay, there we go. All right. This is your project brief and business case. Wow. All right. So we've got our first document. Let's just sort of scan through it. The document outlines the strategic initiative to migrate our healthcare data infrastructure to our Azure Microsoft Cloud, etc. 4.8 million project overview. That's what we have here. Strategic objectives, key deliverables, business case, yeah, current challenges. I would probably want to verify if this is the case. Um, and solutions, right? What we're trying to do and sort of financial impact notes. So this is very detailed. I told it to provide me something very detailed. Cost analysis, sort of giving me a good idea of the cost implication that I'm going to run it by the cost people and see if it makes sense. Some of the risks already identified, right? It's important to identify a risk from the onset because projects of this nature with direct impact on business continuity, security, infrastructure, data has critical impact on anything. And so you don't want to mess anything up and you want to be able to identify things from the onset. Okay. So strategic alignment, recommendations, etc. Let's now go and look at this executive summary, project objective scope. Excellent, excellent, excellent stuff. Okay, all right. The cost, benefits, risks, mitigation. I've got some mitigation now. I can sort of put all of this together. Governance. Again, I tend to typically say, please add any detail that you failed to add the very first time. Copy. And I'm going to run that through. I'm going to run the same here again. All right. And I'm going to run the same on Gemini. And you're right. Okay. Deeper into HIPAA. Excellent stuff. Okay. It will be written. Final strategic. I would say give me a downloadable file. And I'll do the same here. I need a downloadable. Okay. And I probably wouldn't get anything from Gemini, again, because it's not a paid version, but hey, it's worth trying. Why not? Okay. Yeah. Because it's not paid, generally they will tell you what they think you should be doing. But with, ChatGPT, I'll get a downloadable file, Word file, and I will also um, get a downloadable file for I understand your need for download version, the project brief, and the document I prepared. This is strategic. Also, ready, yeah, download file, so ready. I need a Word file. Okay. Okay. So I'm not getting that. It's telling me to download, copy and paste. So that's fine. I've got my project brief. And I would spend time to study this, right? I would spend a lot of time to study this, as I should, right? Um, Rightly so, right? Because I'm a project manager, and then I would paste this. Let's see what I would get if I choose whichever one I choose. Okay, it's not bad. Yes. So I've got my project brief. I've got my, and I'll go over this and sort of make it fine later on, but I just want you to see we've got this. And then we also got a file from, let's go to the download files. And we have this one. Yes, we've got the same one here, enable editing. And yeah, we've got some in there. I would probably spend some time and merge them together so that we can have a very detailed document. I want to probably copy what I have from Gemini, you know, here. Yeah, it says when initial response was good, etc., etc. Okay, so let's just copy this and business case. And then what's the first one? First one is project brief. Voila. I'm going to add it to this one here because I would later on come back and look at it and put them together as one main document. And I actually don't waste my time in trying to do that. I would basically copy them together and then I would say, hey, ChatGPT, Claude, merge this together and I'll create one final document. But I'm not going to do that for this conversation because I feel like it's taking long. Our conversation doesn't have to be that long. So I have my project brief. I've got my business case. I'll study it, understand it. Let's go and see what else we need. We need a project initiation document and a project requirement document. So those are simple things that we can easily now get, right? So yeah, can you now create a PID document of this project? Sorry, I have to copy the same. Yep, the same. Um, the same here. And then I'll do the same and the same, etc., etc. Okay, based on that, this is the PID that's creating for us. Yeah, and this is the first PID. So let's just quickly go through it. Your project background, your project purpose, scope, right? Complete migration of healthcare and data storage, migration ER, this. Now, I want to let me just be fairly honest with you that if you haven't heard any of this stuff, quite honestly, a lot of these are going to go over your head, right? So part of it is to study this and have conversations with the relevant subject matter experts. But what I'm trying to do is to initiate and plan for you. You need to have some type of understanding for these things to make sense, right? If you get to the governance part, the steering committee, project steering committee, project manager, and then of course your work streams, you've got your roles and responsibilities, and then of course you've got these. So this is a very detailed document for me. Decision makers, project level. Okay, I've got resource planning. I've got the different FTEs here, 100% allocation, timing, external, internal. This all have to sort of be, contextualized and changed based on what it is that I'm doing in my context. Let's see if I have anything. Okay, they created a PID document that is ready for download. So let's just go and see. Let's see what that is. Again, the PID document is not really PIDing for me. It lacks details. It's just too high level for a PID document. But that's typical of ChatGPT. That's why I use Claude and I use Gemini to help to balance what it is that I'm seeing. This is a much more detailed write-up, as you can see. It pretty much has everything. Okay. And then in the same lights, let's just sort of finalize the stuff. So I would say I need a work breakdown structure and a project schedule. So now create a work breakdown structure and project schedule for this project. Also add a uh, creative roadmap design. Okay, let's see what comes up. I probably will stick with Claude for the next couple of things that I'm going to be doing because I feel like ChatGPT doesn't necessarily help me. And you can sort of see the project initiation and planning document, right? Now the building the work breakdown structure. This is a detailed one, and I'll probably take this and go and put it into Microsoft projects, and that will kind of help with what I'm doing. So having some time researching about this is going to be very critical in helping you. Also, just to sort of help you to understand that some of the questions that I'm asking, a lot of the things is because I am interrogating the data, I'm asking specific questions. I am also aware of what to ask to some degree. And so if you're new to it, you would need some background information. And a lot of these, I'm not just going to take them hook, line, and sinker, as it were, if I said it correctly. But the point is, I'll really interrogate it and try and understand whether or not this is right. I'll probably send this to this is more to do with the cloud stuff, right? The Azure environment. I'll send it to the cloud team and say, hey, is this correct? Can you sort of look at it for me? Just trying to provide some sort of whatever. And by no means do you actually ever do this on your own. To in all honesty, you would need input from the relevant people. So the work breakdown structure needs to be verified. This will probably be the initial conversation, and then contextually, somebody will sort of add and sort of get rid of what doesn't need to be in there for you. I will always do that check off. Just go back and check again and see if there's anything that you've missed. I'm trying to speed up the video because I feel like I've been talking for too long. But yeah, let's just sort of see what else we've got here. Okay, then we get the project schedule that's being created for us. Okay, phase two. Claude has reached its max length and pause. You can write continue. This is something that happens when Claude sort of reaches, and then it will sort of continue for you. You can write continue. Okay, so we've got the project schedule itself. All right, so different weeks and what we'll be doing. Critical path is also given to us. Um, and then now we're getting the roadmap, as it were, a good design to come up to help us with what we are trying to achieve. So as you can see, look, the work of a project manager can deliver this project, a very complex project. Now, you couldn't just take off this particular detail, information and say you are now an expert at delivering complex IT projects. You need a lot of experience. You need to know what you're doing. But at least for someone like me with a little bit of background and experience, in a matter of, a couple of, hours, I can get everything that I need for the project, which typically would have taken months to sort of build. But now, in just a few buttons and a few clicks, I'm sort of seeing everything right in front of my eyes. And so the time for planning and the time for initiation, as it were, generally is reduced to some degree. There you go, right? I've got my let me sort of make this bigger here. Um, uh, um, okay. Yeah, so phase one on-prem, phase two is to build foundation build, phase three is the migration execution, and then you've got the optimization exercise, as it were, which is brilliant. Excellent, excellent stuff. I'll probably interrogate it a little bit myself based on experience. I'll have this checked by some stakeholders, different experts, sort of they can sort of tell me whether or not some things are missing. I would say, hey, redo it. Some things are overlapping, and it'll probably design it a little bit better for me because I can't even see what is here. Right. So I'm let me just say that, right? Redesign as the some words, some things I'm not showing, and some overlapping. So yeah, quick design. Yeah, so whilst we're waiting for it, like I said, this is something that ultimately would take months to put together. AI makes it very easy, especially when you know what to ask AI and what you're sort of looking for. I've got the work breakdown structure, I've got the project schedule. I will take that data, go to my Microsoft projects, and then be able to build my Gantt charts, as it were. I could ask it to build a Gantt chart for me. For example, I'll ask it just sort of, I'll ask it briefly to say, build a Gantt chart with the information that you have so that we can see. Yeah, now I can sort of see what's there. It's sort of giving me a much better design that I can sort of see. So let's say, build me now a Gantt chart with the schedule. Details you created. All right, cool. Let's see what will come up. Now, I wouldn't use Claude to sort of build a Gantt chart, but I would definitely, get that information and go and put it into my Microsoft projects. I've tried my best to get it to build something that I can download into Microsoft projects, and it doesn't generally work the way I want it to. So I wouldn't use it to do this, but I just wanted to show you that it's possible for you to build something. You don't want to use this because ultimately, if you're going to manage and have oversight of the project, you need something that you build from scratch that you can sort of manipulate and change, as and when sort of there's changes in the scope, there's changes in the sort of the timelines, the milestones changes, whatever changes, dependencies changes. You want to be able to sort of address that in your project planner and your project planning documentation. So I wouldn't use that for this particular task, but I just wanted you to sort of see that you can sort of get this done easily with any project. Okay. We've got two more things and then we'll wrap it up. I'm conscious that this is a fairly long video. But yeah, just bear with me. It's taking quite long. I knew it's going to be long because it's in phases. Um, a project of this nature, you probably would be doing it in phases and a whole lot of things that you need to sort of pay attention to. So voila, we've got something here. It's probably going to help you in terms of having clarity of what it is that you're doing. Like I said, phase one, phase two, phase three, and the different things. Not really what we wanted, how we wanted it, but at least you get a good idea of what it is that you are doing here. Okay, so now two main documents that we need here is the risk. Like I said, it was risk and security plan, and then communication and stakeholder plan. So, okay, now final two documents I need from you is the risk and security plan and the communication and stakeholder management plan. Great. So I think voila. So, says let's chart because you've reached your usage limit faster. Well, let's chart then, whatever you want to tell me. Now, important for you to identify risks, right? It's important, continuous risk management approach. This is so important. The different risks, how you're going to identify the different risks, how you're going to categorize them, the roles and responsibility, initial risk register, right? The different kinds of risks that you sort of need to be looking at, technical risks. So this is project management risks, right? Typical project management stuff, timeline, budget overruns, resource restraint, scope creep. The technical stuff is data migration errors, right? You would realize that the sort of the structure of the current data in your legacy systems might not necessarily be the same as the new system or the database system that you sort of create in Azure. And that has its own complications in terms of, offloading it. And so there's a bit of pipeline work that needs to be done. Also, the errors that are likely to be made as a result of the data migration, performance degradation over migration, right? Integration failures between systems and post migrations, incomplete data models, data mapping. Then you've got security, right? You've got unauthorized access, looking at access. And all of this has to be clearly. One thing that you need to know as a project manager is you need to know these things in detail. Like you've got to understand what this looks like and how this can affect your project and really, really be very, very, very attentive on how you can be able to address this and prevent it in the first place, right? So got that. Your security controls, right? These are things to address all the various things. You've got a security plan, as it were. And for someone like me, I because I'm coming from that background, I definitely understand what I'm looking at. If you don't, you need subject matter experts to help you. Now, I chose a very complex project. I really know that. But the point was to sort of use AI to be able to help you look at even complex projects and see how best AI can help you solve and address a lot of these things. So this is all information that now I can sort of take and this is because you've hit this. Continue. So um, um, let's see if there's anything else that can be added. Yes. Compliance management, HIPAA, what is expected from HIPAA, the audit logs, compliance configuration, this, that. And I understand HIPAA. I know HIPAA from my background, so it's kind of easy. But if you didn't, you need to be able to familiarize yourself around these things. So you can sort of see that with AI, the original task of using AI, let's go back to why we started this whole thing. Use AI to initiate and plan. AI, in a matter of minutes, if you know what you're asking AI and some of the things that you're doing and you have clarity, I can come back a lot of these documentations. I would save them. I would probably save all of this AI responses. I would save this as a project, right? I would create a project and save it. And then, so if I create a project here, um, new projects, and then I would save my Azure um, migration. And then I'll create this project and I would, let me go back. I'll drag and drop this in here. I think I've done something wrong, but I think I get the point. You get the point. But I would, um, no, 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 no. That's this. Yeah. The point is, I didn't do it right. Maybe I didn't sort of do what I needed to do right. But the point is, you would sort of create a project and save this sort of chart in it so that you can come back when you have now all the documentations, you print it off, you read it, you research, you check, you do whatever it is that you need to do. Then you have your subject matter experts validate it, check it, everything is fine. All the comments that they make, you come back into it, you expand on it, you put all the details in there, and then boom, you've got your initiation and planning documentations that you can now give and use as a means of managing your project. You wouldn't have all of this thing clearly defined for you. So you use many other tools to help you to do this, but at least you have initial work done for you with AI. So going back to what I was trying to say before I went a little bit off, you can use AI to initiate and plan any project, even complex projects like what we've just done here, like migrating a data from on-prem to the cloud. Let me just say this: that by no means will this AI now do the execution and the monitoring exercise for you. You would have to do that exercise. And the real work, it's in the execution and the monitoring because now you're going to implement the plans, but your plans have to be well defined and your plans have to be very well, you've got to plan correctly and make sure that everything is in place before you start now building, as it were, against the right wall because everything has been double checked, triple checked, and you've got the right documentations. I hope this was helpful, guys. Let me know if you have any more videos that you want me to do. Thank you very much, and all the best.